initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. That means almost 50 years ago. Since 50 years he has been practicing Krishna consciousness. As a brahmachari, he served in DBT library party. He was also in charge of training new brahmacharis at Los Angeles. He opened a wonderful youth center, preaching center in Delaware, New York. And later on, he got married. And after that, he enhances even more services. He now we see how his congregation development has increased a lot. He had been very instrumental in developing his preaching. He is also a wonderful writer, and he has written many articles in Back to God magazine, as well as he has served as editor of Back to God magazine. He has written many beautiful books. He is a poet. He has rendered this Bhagvatam and Bhagvatam, which are in Sanskrit, and which Prabhupada has translated into English. He has rendered in a poetic form. So his beautiful famous books are God Who Dances. This is on 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, rendition of 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in a poetic way. Also Bhagavad Gita in a poetic way. And recently he has also published Gitardam into English. Like Prabhupada had made into Bengali, so he has made it in English in poetic form. So he is also very much famous for developing youth preaching in America. We see nowadays a lot of, we hear that in West preaching is dwindling, but actually he has revived preaching wonderfully. Here we see in Gainesville.
Nityananda tried this.
Gainesville, Kolkata?
Gainesville.
So this just recent Nityananda. This is just Nityananda festival picture of Gainesville, Florida. So he is a wonderful preacher, and he has revived preaching, and so many youths are taken to Krishna consciousness. Especially he has started this Krishna house, which is now expanding in many places, where young people get opportunity to stay in temple atmosphere, and where they are trained and they are groomed in Krishna consciousness. He is also initiating spiritual master in ISKCON, and he is also a Sabha member, a body which serves GBC in giving advice and other things. So we are very, very honored that he is there with us. So let us welcome His Grace Kalakantha Prabhu to our ISKCON Newtown temple by loudly chanting 3 times. Haribo! Haribo!
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Acharya Ratna Prabhu. I'm so impressed with this wonderful project in Newtown. It's a great privilege to be here. So, this is our Krishna House project in Gainesville, Florida, and we have them in 7 cities now. Going down to Dallas, Houston, Philadelphia, Toronto, Grand Rapids, Syracuse, with many more coming online, we hope. Srila Prabhupada, of course, I have been preaching in America my whole career, and Srila Prabhupada said that what works in one part of the world will not work exactly in another part of the world. Krishna consciousness is universal, but the cultural applications are different. So this morning I'm going to do my best to be relevant to your cultural applications. And you correct me if I'm off. Because it is, yes, it is a different world, and different sets of practices are needed to attract the young men and women to Krishna consciousness. But the regular principles are the same, the japa is the same, the books are the same, the seva, book distribution, prasadam distribution, all this is harinam, same thing, all over the world. And that's the beauty of the gift Srila Prabhupada has given us all. So, this morning, with that courteous, very graceful introduction, thank you. So we're going to be studying the 10th canto, chapter 60 today, starting today. But because I have published this book, God Who Dances, and by the way, Acharya Ratna Prabhu is one of the few people who know where that phrase comes from. Does anyone know? God Who Dances, you ever heard that? There's a famous German philosopher named Nietzsche, who was struggling to find his faith in God. He famously said, if they want me to believe in their God, they're going to have to sing a better song. I can only believe in a God who dances. So, that's Krishna. Unfortunately, no one was there to tell him at the time. So this book, The God Who Dances, is an attempt to recreate for the English-speaking person what it would be like to sit and hear from Shukadeva Goswami the pastimes of Krishna. And of course, the Sanskrit is so condensed and pregnant with meaning. It's difficult to recreate everything in English. But as far as possible, we have done this in this book. And if, as a matter of review, I thought today we could review chapter 58, which you read a few weeks ago, and then tomorrow 59. One of the things that is a benefit of the poetry is very condensed. So it'll just take us 5 or 10 minutes to cover the whole chapter. Is that okay? All right, everyone remember chapter 58? What was the topic in 58? You can see it on the screen. Can you remember some of the princesses that Krishna married in this chapter? Who? Satya, Mitravinda, Kalandi, and 2 are just mentioned briefly at the end. Lakshmana. Bhadra and Lakshmana. If they give a very brief mention. Very brief mention. So, okay, so is there anyone who is not speaking English? I can't even ask the question in Bengal. Oh, thank you. So, all right, we'll just read this through. Some time elapsed. The Pandavas, so cherished by the Lord, survived the plots against them, and their kingdom was restored. When they built Indraprastha as the new seat of their throne, Lord Krishna went to visit them, as he was always prone. When Kunti's 5 outstanding sons saw Krishna had arrived, they rose as if 5 senses of a lifeless man revived. To see his loving face filled them with overwhelming joy. As they embraced the Lord, each felt their problems were destroyed. Lord Krishna paid obeisances, as Vedic texts direct, to Yudhisthira and Bhima, who as elders earned respect. He hugged his equal Arjuna, his pure and lifelong friend, and took the praise the younger twins were happy to extend. The Pandavas' Queen Draupadi was chaste beyond reproach. She dearly loved Lord Krishna, who she timidly approached. His traveling companions, meanwhile, took their honored seats. Queen Kunti then arrived, and all the greetings were complete. Just wonder, would it be easier to read if the lights were off? Would it make a difference? Okay. Queen Kunti loved her nephew, whom she'd longed to see for years. Emotion choked her throat and filled her eyes with blissful tears. Since she had lost her husband, life had caused her much distress. Remembering Lord Krishna's help, she made this short address. My dear Lord Krishna, in our grief you've given us such help. You kindly sent your father, and at last you've come yourself. You're everyone's well-wisher. You treat everyone the same, and yet you please your devotees and add to their acclaim. Queen Kunti's son, King Yudhisthira, continued on this theme. By grace we have your presence, and your help in our regime. Though we are fools, we pray you'll stay until the rains have passed. The Lord complied, and kingdom-wide delight was unsurpassed. Since warriors are allowed to hunt by Vedic moral codes, Arjuna rode with Krishna down the kingdom's forest roads. His chariot held mystic weapons, useful in pursuit of rhinos, tigers, boar, and deer the pair would stop and shoot. Arjuna's servants carried the slain animals away for use in Vedic sacrifice. So doing, all the prey gained new and better bodies through the power of the priests who consummate the sacrifice and benefit the beasts. Arjuna, feeling thirsty, saw the Yamuna nearby. Lord Krishna came and drank with him till both were satisfied. Just then they saw a lovely girl with charming face and hips. At Krishna's hint, Arjuna went and questioned her like this. Who are you, lovely lady? is this place your native land? Your father, is he with you? Are you here by his command? Who is your father? Do you seek a husband in these woods? Please help us understand things so we see you as we should. The woman named Kalindi said, my father is the one that you would know as Surya, or the god who rules the sun. He built for me a mansion in the Jamuna nearby, where I reside and spend my time, just as you have implied. My husband will be Vishnu, or I'll have no maid at all. To satisfy the Lord, with whom I've always been enthralled, I put myself through penance and divine austerity in hopes he will be satisfied and someday marry me. This sweet account, which Krishna knew, was all he had to hear. Kalindi, on his chariot, he went to Yudhisthira in splendid Indraprastha, which the Lord had helped to build by calling Vishvakarma, whose construction is most skilled. Lord Krishna stayed for weeks until, with matters to attend, he went back home to Dwarka with fiancé and friends. And then, when all the planets showed auspicious qualities, he wed Kalindi lavishly and pleased his devotees. Duryodhana detested all the Pandava's success and gathered allies who imbibed his poisoned consciousness. Two brothers named Vindya and Anuvindya held such hate. Then Krishna wed their sister, which they could not tolerate. The sister, Mitravinda, in the classic Vedic way, prepared to choose her husband on her Swayamvara day. Her heart was set on Krishna, which the brothers found obscene. But when the Lord rode off with her, they could not intervene. Then Krishna heard that Nagnajit of Goshala decreed Satya, his lovely daughter, would be his, who could succeed in taming 7 vicious bulls. Forever discontent, these bulls had pointed horns and couldn't stand a warrior's scent. Lord Krishna knew King Nagnajit and, with a massive force, went promptly to his friend to meet this challenge at its source. King Nagnajit, delighted to see Krishna, left his throne and showed Lord Krishna more respect than he had ever shown. Lord Krishna offered his respects. Satya, the lovely maid, observed her latest suitor and immediately prayed, as I have kept my vows as well as any woman can, may Providence arrange that somehow I may wed this man. If Goddess Lakshmi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the rest of all the gods and goddesses were here, they would request the dust of Krishna's lotus feet. To save humanity, he incarnates himself like this. May he be pleased with me. King Nagnajit first worshipped Krishna, seated him, and said, what can I do for you, my lord, but simply bow my head? Lord Krishna, smiling from the royal throne he'd been allowed, addressed the king in pleasing words that rumbled like a cloud. The sages say that kings like you and me, with men and land, should not engage in begging, nor extend an empty hand. And yet, to build our friendship, if the match can be arranged, I ask to wed your daughter, though I've nothing to exchange. The king replied, my lord, to see she'd wed a man like you, I've bound her to a hero's task I'm certain you can do. These 7 wild bulls have broken many suitors' bones. Defeat them, and my daughter shall belong to you alone. The Lord then pulled his belt, and 7 Krishnas came in view. Each one fought with a bull until the beasts were all subdued. Then Krishna became one again and tied the bulls with ease. Satya saw how, despite his other wives, she could be pleased. King Nagnajit then gave Satya to Krishna with delight and held a wedding festival with joyful Vedic rites. Satya, her mother, and the court were filled with ecstasy, and common people shared the mood of great festivity. The mighty Nagnajit bestowed a dowry for the bride that reached such great proportions it could not be quantified. The multitudes of maidens, cows, and elephants surpassed its hordes of men and chariots, which in themselves were vast. The king sent this beloved couple off with much remorse aboard a royal chariot amidst a mighty force. This proved to be quite prescient, for on the road, in fact, a slew of jealous, disappointed rival kings attacked. Before, the 7 vicious bulls had overwhelmed these kings. Now Arjuna and other soldiers managed the same thing. They parried every king's attack with fortitude and skill, as lions drive off jackals who attempt to steal their kill. Lord Krishna, who ruled Dwaraka and all the Yadu clan, returned with his new bride and her vast dowry to his land. As citizens applauded them with boundless happiness, Satya and Krishna entered their new palace home in bliss. But Krishna hadn't finished. He had many wives to wed, for he expands in countless forms, as we've already said. Bhadra came as a gift, then Lakshmana by strength of force, and Krishna married 16,000 others in due course. Okay, that's a little review. All right, now we'll start with chapter 60. We can turn this off now. All right, so we have the verse on the screen also. Oh, we don't have the verse. Right. Okay, yes, okay. Let's go ahead. Okay, this is chapter 60. Can we have lights back on, please? Chapter 60. Lord Krishna teases Queen Rukmini. This chapter describes how Lord Krishna provoked anger in Queen Rukmini with joking words and then consoled her, thus demonstrating the opulence of a lover's quarrel. One day Lord Krishna sat at ease in Queen Rukmini's bedroom while she and her maidservants attended him in various ways. Rukmini always responded to Sri Krishna's moods, whatever they might be. On this occasion, the Lord looked at Rukmini, whose beauty was faultless, and began to tease her. Previously, many wealthy kings, worthy of you in their appearance and character, wanted to marry you. In fact, your father and brother intended to give you in marriage to Shishupal. Why then did you accept such an unsuitable husband as me, who once renounced my kingdom and fled to the sea in fear of Jarasandha? Besides, I transgress worldly morality, and because I own nothing, I am dear to other paupers. Certainly the well-to-do would not worship one such as me. We have the... Oh, is it ready? No. Coming now. Okay. When a man and a woman share the same social class, influence, physical beauty, and so on, marriage or friendship can flourish between them. But out of short-sightedness, you have accepted a husband who lacks every good quality and is glorified by beggars. Better you had married some prominent warrior. Then you might have been happy in this life and the next. Your brother Rukmi and kings like Shishupal all hate me, and it was only to cut down their pride that I kidnapped you. But as for such things as body, home, wife, and children, I am indifferent to them, being the self-satisfied personality of Godhead, transcendental to all material affairs. Someone else like to take a turn reading? We have a microphone. It even has musical accompaniment. Sri Krishna stopped speaking.
Shri Krishna stopped speaking, having destroyed Queen Rukmini's confidence that she was her husband's favorite. She began to cry, and soon she became stunned in extreme fear, pain, and sadness, and fell unconscious. Lord Krishna saw that she had misunderstood his joking, and thus he felt compassion for her. He picked her up from the floor and, caressing her face, consoled her. I know you are totally attached to me. It was only out of eagerness to see your lotus feet adorned with frown that I teased you. To joke with one's beloved is the highest enjoyment for householders. These words dispelled Rukmini's fear of rejection. Seeing that Krishna had spoken only in jest, she said, "What you said about the two of us being mismatched is actually true. After all, no one is equal to you, the omnipotent master of the three principal deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva." Rukmini went on to show how everything Krishna had said denigrating himself was actually glorification. Lord Krishna then spoke to Rukmini with deep affection. I did not intend to agitate your mind with my joking words. Rather, I wanted to demonstrate the strength of your chastity. Anyone who prays to me for sense gratification and happiness in family life is simply deluded by my illusory energy, Maya. Such a person will take a low birth. Ordinary women with corrupt desires cannot possibly worship me faithfully as you have done. At the time of your marriage, you showed no interest in any of the loyal suitors. Rather, you sent a Brahmana messenger for me. Thus, you are certainly the most beloved of all my consorts. In this way, the Lord of the universe, Sri Krishna, took pleasure in joking with the goddess of fortune in her form as Rukmini. And in a similar fashion, he fulfilled all the duties of a householder in each palace of her other queens.
Okay, text 1. Shri Badarayana Uvacha Karhichet Sukham Asinam Swatalpastam Jagadgurum Patim Paryacharat Paismi Vyajanena Sakhi Janai Karhichit Sukham Asinam Swatalpastam Jagadgurum Patim Paryacharat Paismi Vyajanena Sakhi Janai. Please chant. Aichit Sukhamasinam Swastam Jagat Gurum Patim Paryacharat Paismi Rajanena Sakhi Janai Shri Padarayana Uvacha Kaichit Sukhamasinam Sajat Gurum Patim Paryacharat Paismi Rajanena Sakhi Janai Shri Badarayana Uvacha Kaichit Sukhamasinam Jagat Gurum Patim Paryacharat Vaismi Vajanena Sakhi Janai Shri Badarayana Uvacha Karichet Sukhamasinam Swatalpastam Jagat Gurum Patim Parcharayat Vaishmi Vyajanena Sakhi Janai Shri Badarayani Shukadev Goswami, the son of Badarayana Vedavyas. Uvacha said, Karichit, on one occasion, Sukham comfortably, Asinam sitting, Swa on her, Tulpa bed, Stam situated, Jagat of the universe, Gurum the spiritual master, Patim her husband, Paryacharat served, Vaishmi Rukmini, Vyajanena by fanning, Sakhi Janai together with her female companions. Sri Badarayani once said, Sri Badarayani said, that's all right, let's read it together, everyone can see. Sri Badarayani said, once, in the company of her maidservants, Queen Rukmini was personally serving her husband, the spiritual master of the universe, by fanning him as he relaxed on her bed. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti poetically notes that in this chapter, Rukmini Devi is like fragrant camphor crushed on the grinding stone of Lord Krishna's speech. In other words, the lovely, chaste qualities of Rukmini will become manifest as a result of Lord Krishna's apparently insensitive words, just as campher's fragrance becomes manifest when granules of camphor are crushed by a grinding stone. The Acharya further points out that Rukmini is personally serving the Lord because he is Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the universe, and Patim, her husband. Jai. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gyanangana Salakaya Chaksuvarunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This relationship between Rukmini and Krishna, this relationship is so delicious. The discussion they're going to have is among the most charming conversations in Srimad Bhagvatam, with Krishna listing all of the reasons why he's unfit to be her husband. So sometimes when breaking a relationship in the ordinary parlance, there's an expression. The person who wants to break off the relationship says, "It's not you, it's me." It's not you, it's me. You're wonderful, it's just that I'm not qualified in this relationship. So Krishna is saying like this in the chapter. No, Rukmini, you deserve somebody much better than me. And then he begins to list all of his disqualifications. So it's so very amusing because Krishna is the most qualified. But his intent is to see Rukmini upset, mad with him. The differences between husband and wife are compared to the rumbling of clouds when there is no rain, or the butting of heads by goats. Right? There is apparent tension, but they're just really having fun. The thunder sounds very frightening, but it's not producing any lightning or rain. So similarly, when husband and wife are arguing, it can sound very intense, but in fact, it is just inconsequential. It doesn't change the underlying, in a good marriage, it doesn't change the underlying bond between husband and wife. So exploring this in this conversation, Krishna is showing how he was able to take pleasure in every relationship. Okay? When it was time for him to be a warrior, he killed the asuras. When it was time for him to be married, he charmed and arranged all of these wives. And as a married man, when it was time to provoke his wife, he was expert. Nobody could do it better. And then he felt like I overdid it. So all of this is disclosed in the course of this chapter. Krishna is so amazing that he manifests countless living entities. Countless living entities. Just to give an idea how many living entities Krishna creates. Do you know how many cells there are in a human body? Anybody know? About 90 trillion cells, they say. Now, what is the symptom of the presence of the soul? the 6 things that indicate the presence of the soul. Anybody remember some of these 6? There's what? What's first? Birth. And then growth, then duration of life, maintenance, and then passing of byproducts, then dwindling, and finally death. So when the soul enters the body, these 6 things occur. So in the study of biology, we see each one of these cells has all of these properties. So there is a living being inside each one of these 90 trillion cells in a human body. Just one human body, 90 trillion cells. Thousands and millions of times greater than the population of the whole world inside one human body. And I bet you thought you were alone in there. Now, and of these 90 trillion cells, only 10 trillion are human cells. The other 80 trillion are other species. There's 10 trillion cells that are cooperating to make the body work, and there's 80 trillion cells that are either sponging off the other 10 or waiting for the big feast at the end. So, each and every one of these souls has a unique relationship with Krishna. Each and every one of these 90 trillion souls has a unique way of pleasing Krishna, a unique, distinct way of pleasing Krishna. You know this word, this adjective, unique. It's an adjective that cannot be qualified by another adjective or an adverb. For example, you cannot say, that feast was pretty unique. It's either unique or it's not unique. You see? That kurta is sort of unique. It's either unique or it's not unique. You see? So Krishna has a unique relationship with each and every living being. And what is that relationship? It is a eko bahunam yovidadhati kamanam. Right? Krishna is fulfilling the needs of each and every one of them. They are bringing Krishna pleasure in a unique way, and Krishna is filling their needs. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo viridhati kamanam. Out of countless eternals, there's one chief, and out of countless conscious beings, there's one chief, and the one chief is providing the needs for all the others. Imagine you were God. Wouldn't it be a very godlike thing to do to create countless other beings to bring you joy, to bring you pleasure, each in a unique way? So this is Krishna. He is creating innumerable living entities. One body, 90 trillion. There's billions of human bodies. Human beings are one of 8,400,000 species, right? And all of these species have bodies with cells and other, it goes on and on. It's just incomprehensible. Each and every one has a unique way of pleasing Krishna. So amazing how Krishna is. And yet Krishna is finding time to have this very intimate exchange with one of his devotees, just trying to get her agitated. So there's so many ways to get your wife upset. I have learned many of them over the years. Sometimes intentionally, but usually inadvertently. Now, Krishna is Akila Rasa, right? He's full of all rasas. In the course of dealing with all of these countless living entities, he is the master of all kinds of different relationships. So for those living entities who approach him, there are 6 primary relationships. Excuse me, 5 primary relationships. The first being awe and reverence. Awe and reverence. So awe and reverence is a legitimate approach to the Supreme. That is the extent of the approach to God taught in most religions. That God is great, we are little, we pray to God, we submit ourselves to God. We should understand, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaches, this is very good. If people come to that level of realization, to submit to God, they are devotees. They are devotees, even if that is the extent of their realization. It is important that we honor that commitment and that surrender, even if we feel we have higher knowledge and more understanding of this. My friend Anuttama Prabhu was in an interfaith discussion group, and they would take turns bringing up different questions to the group. So when it was his turn, he decided that the topic for the next discussion would be the kingdom of God, because we have so much more information. He thought in a subtle way he was going to show them the superiority of the Vaishnava tradition. Chintamani prakara sadmashu kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu saravi ravi palyantam. So many descriptions of the kingdom of God. Nata basayate suryo na shashankana pavaka. You don't need electricity, sunlight, or moonlight because Krishna's body is so effulgent. Everything is described in great detail. Every word is a song. Every step is a dance. We have so much information. So he brought up the topic. Then he gave his description. Then he turned to the next fellow who was a Christian preacher. And the Christian preacher said, well, in our tradition, I don't know what it's like so much, but I know I'm going to go there. So Anuttama Prabhu said he felt very ashamed at that point, that he was not properly respecting the God consciousness of his fellow. So it is a fact that we have more knowledge on so many topics, but it doesn't help by saying, by trying to make other people feel discouraged about their faith. You know, in the Gita, Krishna says, "Na buddhi bede jana yed." The wise do not disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive action, but rather what? What do they do? The wise do not disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruitive work, but rather engage them in works of devotion. Yes. So this is how we can express our appreciation for those who don't have deeper knowledge of God. And it is, again, it's very important that we do so. There was some commentator who was saying there are thousands of religions in the world, and they all have one thing in common. And the other fellow said, is that, oh, what, they believe in a supreme being? And he said, no, they all think theirs is the best one. So, in the unfolding of these rasas, awe and reverence is the foundation. And from awe and reverence comes what? Service. Yes, then there's a reciprocation. God is great. Not to denigrate, but this is a prayer that I learned in my youth in the Christian church. Our Father who art in heaven, give us thy day, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. So it's more or less like a shopping list, you see? Asking all these things. The day, the bread, forgiveness, resistance. The Dasya Ras is a step up. Instead of asking God, what can you do for me? I ask, what can I do for you? Now, our friends in other traditions touch on this. They have an idea of the Lord's work, but it's generally on the material platform, right? Mana seva, madhava seva, right? Serving man is serving God. For example, I was with a group of chaplains representing different faiths at the university where I preach. And the other preachers would get very excited once a year because they would do what they call, they try to feed the homeless. They would have a big organized effort to feed the poor. And they call it peanut butter and Jesus. That we're going to feed, we're all going to get together and feed poor people. So that's a very valuable thing to do without doubt. But is it directly service to God? We know that dasya rasa means more than that. What is the most basic service of God that every one of us, to God that every one of us does every day? Chanting japa, exactly. That is service. Chanting is service. Why? What's that? Speak loudly, someone. It gives pleasure to Krishna, right? Krishna enjoys hearing his name, just like every one of us likes to hear our name. It said the sweetest sound in any language is the sound of one's own name. When Acharya Ratna Prabhu is saying, is just sitting here chanting my glories, remembering more things about my life than I can remember. What do I feel? I feel, all right, it's humbling, but Hare Krishna, I guess I'm not so bad. I take some pleasure. Everyone does. Every living being takes pleasure in hearing their name. And Krishna is no exception. But Krishna is not ashamed to admit it. Yes, Krishna takes pleasure in hearing his name. So this is real seva. My friends in the chaplain group, they had a hard time relating to this. You know, once we had a spring break at the college when all the students are off. So our students from the Krishna House ashram all made a pilgrimage to another temple where we had a kirtan festival. So we drove and we chanted and Haribol. And then the other chaplains were saying, oh yeah, the kids from our group, we went to Haiti and we helped build houses for the poor and we did this kind of construction and this kind of service for humanity. So when I told them, well, our group just went and chanted, they were kind of puzzled. With it, well, the idea is service, you know, but they don't understand. There is no better service, you know. So, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitanam, Krishna is providing everything for everyone. Jivo Jivasya Jivanam, one living being is food for another. Krishna arranges. Therefore, it's not our priority to feed the hungry. It is our priority to see that Krishna is pleased. Some sit here, Hari Toshanam. Then, if Krishna is pleased, that activity is perfect. So this is Dasya Ras. Then, after Dasya Ras comes what? Sakya Ras. Yes, friendship with Krishna. So let's look at that for a moment. Friendship means that one can have respect for one's friend and one can render service for one's friend. But it also includes what? What's it? A sense of equality, intimacy. You can't have intimacy without a sense of equality, mutual respect. So Krishna is driving Arjuna's chariot, something like an Uber driver. He's taking this position because he respects his friend. Where do we first see Krishna in Srimad Bhagvatam in the first canto? What is he doing? He's driving Arjuna's chariot. Yes, same thing. Right. So this is the Sakya Ras, friendship. You remember in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is convinced. He's gone through many different phases, skepticism, depression, but now he's convinced about Krishna's supremacy in chapter 10. Right? Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramama. Okay, now I see. I see it, all the sages see it, you're the supreme. And then he asks, so how should I meditate on you? Krishna tells him. And then he gets a little bit more bold and he says, can you show me your cosmic form? And Krishna says, yes, of course. You'll need divine eyes. No one's ever seen this, but you can see it. And at first, Arjuna is very awestruck. But then he feels what emotion? Fear. Then he becomes frightened. He sees, oh, all the gods are shrinking away in fear. You're consuming the whole universe through your mouth. And what is your purpose? Why have you come, O destroyer of the worlds? Time I am, Krishna says. And all these warriors are already slain, and you can be my instrument, whether you fight or not. So this is not a relationship of equality. It's a relationship of awe and reverence, right? So Arjuna immediately comes into that mood of awe and reverence. Oh, Krishna. And remorsefully, he starts saying, I sat with you in a familiar way. I talked with you. I joked with you. And please forgive me like a father might forgive an impudent son, or a lover might forgive a beloved. Please forgive me. In this way, Arjuna goes from feeling so confident in his friendship with Krishna that he can ask him to show him the universal form, to being intimidated as anything. So Krishna then says, all right, Arjuna, here. First he shows his forearm form, but even that's too much. Then he shows, okay, Krishna, here, Arjuna, here I am again in my familiar form. Here I am again in my familiar form. Please calm down. Krishna does not like this awe and reverence as much as he relishes the friendship of his devotee. But one must be very deeply engaged in service to come to this level. It is not a cheap thing. So after that comes, after friendship comes what? Vatsalya, the parental relationship, where the parents can sometimes tell the child what to do, right? The parent has reverence for the child. The parent serves the child like anything. The parent befriends the child, but sometimes the parent has to direct and chastise and train the child. Even more intimacy in that relationship. Because Krishna is not going to be bossed around by just anybody. Krishna will only give that relationship to very intimate servants. And finally, we come to this conjugal ras, Madhurya ras, which is Rukmini and Krishna. And in this conjugal rasa, well, there is the lover has reverence for the beloved, the lover serves the beloved, the lover is friends with the beloved, the lover is sometimes chastised by the beloved, but they also have the intimacy of conjugal love. And so this is why it is the most complete of all the rasas. It's all contains everything. So in this conjugal rasa, there are two divisions. The, what is it? The Swakiya and Parakiya, thank you. Swakiya means legal, legitimate, they are married. So we have been reading now how Krishna is really good at getting married. He does not have to go on Tinder looking for a date. He does not have to ask his parents to make some arrangement for him. And he is able to keep all of these wives satisfied. Generally in this world, to keep one wife satisfied is extremely demanding. But Krishna has no trouble to keep all of these 16,000 wives satisfied, as Narada sees when he's later visiting Dwarka in a subsequent chapter. So this Swakiya rasa that Rukmini and Krishna are enjoying is characterized by the intimacy, familiarity, and even the position of chastising. So now, Rukmini is more in the mode of humility. Some of Krishna's wives are more assertive. Satyabhama comes to mind, right? Satyabhama, upon seeing another woman with this heavenly flower, Parijata flower, is it? She said, I want one of those. Krishna, bring me one of those. And he took her to the heavenly planets, and there she saw, oh, there's whole trees of these flowers. Give me, Krishna, I want a whole tree. And when she made this demand, Krishna had to immediately comply, even though it upset the demigods, and a whole fight ensued. But the henpecked husband is another flavor of the rasa, the Swakiya rasa, as is the dominant husband. So all of these unlimited relationships, Krishna enjoys each and every one of them. The Parakiya rasa is higher. Why? Because it's illegitimate. So much social standing, everything has to be sacrificed just to be with Krishna. But that's another topic. And this Swakiya rasa is this beautiful exchange where Krishna is trying to irritate his wife. And he succeeds not only in irritating her, but even more. So as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna is crushing to bring out the aroma of Rukmini's devotion. And this is the introduction to this beautiful pastime. So it's 9 o'clock now. We'll stop here. Any questions? Okay. Comments, reflections?
Hare Krishna. If anybody has any questions, the opportunity to ask.
And it's in the material sphere that he's showing all these rasas. Why did he show the Dwarka rasas, the Swakiya rasas, while he had already shown lot of rasas there in Vrindavan? So again, why had he to play all these?
Everyone knows Swarup Krishna Prabhu. He's the reason I'm here in Kolkata. Swarup Krishna Prabhu and I have been working together to translate Bengali books to English poetry. He does the Bengali translation, he did Guitar Gan, and then I put it in poetry. So we have published that book now, and now we're almost finished with Sharanagati by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. All 51 songs, Swarup Krishna Prabhu is translated word for word, and then I'm putting in poetry to try to reflect the Thakur's poetry for the English-speaking person. And Swarup Krishna Prabhu has a wonderful daughter, who some of you may know, who was a student at the University of Florida where we preach, and was with us for several years while she was getting her PhD, and now is married and lives in Columbus, Ohio, and she's calling right now. Right? So you're asking, why did Krishna get married? We might ask, why did your daughter get married? Why did you want your daughter to get married? Why not just be detached and chant Hare Krishna?
That's as per the Vedic process. But Krishna's case is different. Yes.
But Krishna says in the Gita that if I did not do my duties, the whole world would go to ruin. Right? So this is part of the Varnashram system, to be Grihastha. Imagine if Krishna had not gotten married and he was only known for this Parakiya rasa. Once on a radio program in Los Angeles, a devotee was being interviewed and a woman called in, your God consorts with other men's wives. And the devotee answered very boldly, no, everyone is Krishna's wife. God is the enjoyer of everyone, so everyone is Krishna's wife. So the question is, why are you consorting with Krishna's wives? In the Varnashram system, one analogy is there that the sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and brahmacharis are on one side of the scale, and the grihastas are on the other. And it's all weighed to the grihastas. Why? Because the grihastas are the source of the brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. Without grihastas, there'd be no other ashram. And grihastas are the only ones who give support to the other ashrams. Right? That is the Vedic way. So the grihastha ashram has so much importance. How could Krishna neglect it? In fact, he emphasized it by marrying so many times. So important, so very important. Without grihastha, you have no varnashram. You have no women, no children. Yeah. Because the Mayavadis say, oh, all you need are sannyasis. And the one popular Mayavadi sect, I visited their headquarters once, or their ashram in London, and very strict rules for sannyasis. Sannyasis are cloistered. They are never allowed to see a woman. only in the most rare occasions. And in their lectures, there's a curtain, and all the women sit on this side, behind the curtain, so the sannyasis don't have to see. This is like not, this is because to them, their spiritual life doesn't begin until they take sannyas. But the Vaishnava has no such illusions. You know, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung Grihe Take Vani Take Sada Hari Bolo Take. Bengali, huh? How's my pronunciation? Pretty bad. Grihe Tako Vani Tako, right? Sada Hari Bolo Take. Bole Tako. Anyway, the point is that Krishna is showing that everybody is eligible to reach him, not only the sannyasis. And he's showing that by not to take sannyas himself. When do we see Krishna taking sannyas? I'm renouncing this world. No, Krishna was enjoying. He was enjoying this world. 16,000 wives, 16,000 palaces. He never discouraged his devotees from marrying either. See? So the point is that it is part of the Vedic system. Just one word, as an old man in ISKCON. I've observed this experience. When I first joined the ashram, it was seen that if somebody got married, they were advanced. Everybody who moved in, men and women, they would be single until they were fixed up, and then they could get married. And if somebody was married, that was a respectful indicator of their advancement. Over the next few years, that flipped. And the brahmachari ashram became very prominent and very strong, and if somebody got married, it was a big step down. But what happened after that? People stopped joining. In the West, people stopped joining. So many people were joining when Grihastha life was respected. When Grihastha life was disrespected, people stopped joining. So we've had to reverse that again to get people joining again in the West. So Krishna must show the Swakiya rasa, because without it, everything is ruined. Is that all right? Yes, Prabhu. Please.
In the spiritual world, there is no birth. So there are no children. Children born. When people may be of lower age or whatever, but there is no concept of children being born. But here Krishna shows that he's got children. They are born. And obviously, like as you have pointed out, to show that the Grihastha life is also important. And how is Krishna trying to explain this concept that Grihastha life is important, and how can a Grihastha really like reach to the perfection?
Yes, children, a marriage without children is compared to a tree without fruit. Yeah? Sometimes by Krishna's arrangement, marriages don't produce children, but in the normal course of things, they will. So in this, in the material world, birth is a very painful experience. No child has ever been born laughing. Right? First thing is you come out of the womb screaming, ah, and then somebody will pick you up, smack you. So, and then when the child is born, so much responsibility, right? So much responsibility. For the first 2 years, the child is very dependent, and then when they turn 2 or so, then they become very independent, and that's even worse. They're like one big sense organ with feet. So, so much burden. The human child takes so much care and attention. I live on a farm, and we have some cows. And when the calf was born within a few minutes, calf is standing up, drinking milk. But the human child, it takes weeks before they can even lift their head. Right? It's because the human body has this gigantic head, in proportion to the rest of its little body. A horse, a cow, they have strong legs, they immediately stand up. But the human, just this big head. It's because atato brahma jigyasa. The human child is so very, very dependent, and therefore so much energy is required in this world. In the heavenly planets, though, the child is born only at the end of life. And like Kunti's sons, already formed, already like competent to be independent. So that's a little better, much better. But in the spiritual world, is there no birth? Well, there's no birth of the kind that we experience. There was a devotee friend of mine who had a kidney stone. And a kidney stone for a man is the most painful experience. And he was in the hospital in agony. And two nurses were caring for him. And as he was screaming and writhing, one of them couldn't resist saying, "Now you have a little idea what childbirth is like." So that birth exists in the material world. How could it not exist in the spiritual world? But there is no suffering associated with it. In other words, if the devotee in the spiritual world wants to have a child, what is to stop? But there's no need for the ordinary course of events to create that child. It is the desire, if the devotee desires to have children, that desire is immediately fulfilled. The devotee desires to serve Krishna in that way. And as you say, there are children in the spiritual world. It's not a adults-only club, right? So everything is there, but without the suffering that is found in its reflection. Whatever we see in this world that's not connected to Krishna, know it to be my illusory energy. That reflection which appears to be in darkness. It's a reflection, in other words. There is a reality, but the reflection appears to be in darkness. See? So there is a reality of birth. I don't know a lot more about it. I don't remember much about it in Prabhupada's books or anything about it. But if it exists here, it exists there. The only thing that exists here that doesn't exist there is what? There's illusion in the spiritual world. Otherwise, how does Yashoda think that Krishna is her son? Well, it's the one thing that does not exist. Envy. Envy. As soon as there's envy, it's Calcutta. All right. Okay. All right. Anything else? Krishna Prabhu teaches that the Bhakti Shastri at MIHE, so he has very penetrating questions. Thank you. Any other last questions, comments, reflections? Yes, Prabhuji. Your good name? What is your name, Prabhuji? Bhima. Nice to meet you.
I wanted to ask that is there any relationship between jivas in spiritual world?
Is there any relationship between jivas in the spiritual world? Oh, yes. Very much so. All the relationships are there. But they're all centered around Krishna. We see in the cowherd boys in Vrindavan, for example, they're joking together, they're stealing each other's lunches, they're sharing their lunches. But when Krishna comes, they all race to be with Krishna. Who will be with Krishna first? I want to touch Krishna. No, I want to touch Krishna first. So that, yes, full relationships, but centered on Krishna. We're asking nice questions about the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada said that when he was asked such questions, he said, you'll have to go there to find out. Okay, anything else? All right, well, thank you very much for this opportunity. So nice to be here and meet you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.